second segment of the show, we want to talk about grading today. You may have read some about that or heard about grading. And so I've invited a very special guest that's helping with the leadership of where we go with grading in those conversations. And I'd like to introduce you to my right hand, Dr. Jaworowski. She is the Associate Superintendent with Instruction and Accountability. And so she works with all of curriculum and development, so grading is obviously a piece of that. Dr. Jaworowski, we're just going to jump right in. Why are we talking about grading, and what are we talking about with grading?
Well, our purpose in having these discussions is to create an environment where grading is done for the purpose of learning, not simply to produce grades on a report card. Mm-hmm. Many teachers already practice many of the principles we're discussing. Many are trying to understand it. Many parents are trying to understand it. But our goal is ultimately to encourage students to learn through the process of grading. We're looking at what national leaders are saying about grading, what their research says about grading and the impact on students positively and negatively. We're looking at all of the pieces that we need to talk about. Mm. And we're having some professional conversations with teachers about it, and we'll continue to do that.
Well, a lot of people say, I just don't get this. I mean, why don't you just grade A, B, C, 90 to 100 is an A, and why don't you just always grade the way you did when I was in school? It worked when I was in school. Why are you mixing that up? What is some of that research saying, or what do you mean by there may be some practices out there that helps with instruction?
Well, I think what some of our teachers have found is what the research has found, is that for some students, the way we were graded works just fine, and they do very well. But for many students, it takes more than one opportunity to show what they know and can understand. Perhaps what a student learns in a classroom and what they've been taught helps them learn a portion of the information, but they might need more teaching, a different way of teaching, so that they can fully grasp what's going on. The other piece is sometimes if a student fails a test or fails to turn in a piece of work, and we never follow up on that, then they simply miss that information. Ultimately, we want them to learn it, and we're trying to find a way to encourage them to keep trying, to keep working, to keep learning, so that they can learn the material that we are responsible for teaching them.
Well, I know I've heard you work with teacher groups, and you've talked some about just taking a zero is not enough. That's just not acceptable. You can't just move on. And I think I've heard you use the terms, and I think we've done some Rick DeFore work about what happens if they don't get it the first time. Then what do we do? If you don't get it the first time it's delivered?
Well, many students don't get it the first time. Every student doesn't learn at the same pace. They don't come to every class with the same background, same learnings, prior learnings from previous classes or previous grades or previous courses. And so every child's not starting in the same place. And so we have to be willing to meet them where they are and help them reach a level where they can understand the material. Again, our ultimate goal is for all children to be engaged in learning and to learn what they're expected to learn.
Well, I know part of this grading conversation got really sticky, and people have real strong opinions about when a student is caught cheating. Not that they didn't learn it the first time, but they get caught cheating. What do we do about that, and what are some of the best practices around how you grade around students?
Well, we clearly have to have consequences to cheating. That goes back to something you talked about earlier, character education. Mm-hmm. That's a behavior, but it's a behavior that impacts grades. And we do need to teach responsibility and the right ways to address what we produce and have true responsibility and authenticity in what students produce. But when we back them up against the wall, sometimes they go to a cheating mode to accomplish what they need to accomplish. I think it's about feedback we give students. It's about how we teach character education. But clearly we do have to have consequences for cheating.
Mm-hmm. And so there's more consequences around the behavior that they actually committed instead of just giving them a 0 necessarily.
Right, because ultimately we still want them to do the work and learn the information.
Gotcha. Another area of that was really complicated, we talked about work ethic, and people would say, well, if you give students additional opportunities when they didn't turn the work in on time, what are we teaching them with the character education? Can you talk about that a little bit?
A lot of people sort of parallel this to the work world. And in the work world, we don't often get a second chance to get it right. But I think what we have to recognize here is this is a formative environment. This is a nurturing, learning environment. As adults, we didn't all come to the table knowing what we know now. We learned it. Somewhere along the way, we got it right a few times, we got it wrong a few times. And so we are in an environment where we want to teach children the right way to do things. And this is a piece of it.
There's been a committee that was put together about 1.5 years. Can you talk about who's on the committee and some of the work the committee has done?
This committee, this work is really for grades 6 through 12, and we have had teachers from middle school and high school that were selected by their administrators to represent their school. And these are obviously teachers that are respected and highly regarded in their building. These teachers have come together and they have they've done a lot of reading, they've done a lot of professional conversations, they've had some very difficult conversations. They have not all agreed on everything they've discussed. And so they're at a point now where they've come to some place that they want more feedback. We were in the process of getting feedback from parents and from students, and it's time now to get more input from more teachers and from more parents and more students so that we can come to a place where this is supportive of our students but also aligns with the beliefs of this school district.
So as you move forward, how are you going to get that input? What's your plans towards that?
I have already begun conversations with each of the school administrators. We'll be meeting with small teacher groups in every school. We'll be meeting with small student groups in every school and parent groups. We're going to put some information on our website so that those who are really interested can know what we're reading, what we're talking about, what the questions are. We'll try to answer some of their questions on the website. We want to be as inclusive as we can, but in a district this size, it's very difficult to have a meeting with 1,800 teachers and the parents of 17,000 students. But we do want to hear the voices. We do want their input. This is about their children. This is about our community. It's not just about the school district.
And I know as we've had these conversations, you and I have spent a lot of times talking about, is this really about grading? Or is this a conversation about teaching and learning?
It really is about our beliefs in teaching and learning. What do we truly believe about teaching and learning? And what are the most important things? We started it when we started talking about grading, and maybe we started at the end rather than the beginning. Grading is an outcome of teaching and learning and should represent what a student truly knows and is able to do. But I think we've got to go back and look at what we truly believe about teaching and learning. What do parents believe about teaching and learning? What do students want in classrooms so that they can learn the best way that they learn? I think it's about the conversations.
So it's not necessarily about coming up with this perfect policy that every teacher has to march to the same order.
Well, honestly, I believe if we can reach this place where we know what we believe about teaching and learning and have a common belief, we won't need a change in policy. Policies are to put people in a place where they have to do certain things. I believe teachers are professionals, and they know what to do. But we have to come to a common belief about teaching and learning so that we're doing similar things. We want to be fair, we want to be consistent, and we want students to learn.
I so agree with everything you're saying, and I remember the night, I think, that really, you had about a 3-hour presentation in front of the board about what we're working on with grading. And one of the teachers saying, I've always been a good teacher, but I was always challenged about what to do once a child did not get the information. And reading some of this and thinking about this in a different way, how I reteach a particular subject, brought me to a different professional level. And just the feelings that she had about how she's a better teacher now because of these conversations. Have you experienced that some in talking with people who really spent some time on this issue?
Absolutely. As professionals, we probably need to practice what we preach. We say that we want our students to be lifelong learners, and then we have to emulate that. We have to be learners ourselves. There is always something we can learn about our profession, about our students, and about what works best. We don't always know the right, perfect answer. And I don't think a policy is going to get us there. I think the conversations will get us closer to that.
And part of that is that you don't own all the answers and I don't own all the answers, but when we start talking with groups of other professionals, we kind of create those answers, and that's what a professional learning organization really does. Tell me just a little bit about getting closer to being that professional learning organization that we want to be.
Well, there's a lot of research out there on professional learning communities or learning organizations, and that's just a big fancy word for people that are willing to talk about their profession, talk about what they believe, and come together to do the best they know how to do every day. And I think if we can reach that point, even more than we already have, that will get us further down the road in having achievement for all students, not just some students. We want all of our students to be successful, and that doesn't work the same way for every child.
And whether it's grading or coming up with common tests or how we look at curriculum, I know you and I both have a similar high school background. We're both high school teachers, and the day of going into your classroom and just shutting that door, doing your own thing, is over. And
well, I think we could still do that, but I don't know that that would be the best environment or the best culture in our schools for our students. We've got to focus on the learning and the student. And the first thing in our professional code says we put students first. And if we truly believe that, then we'll have these conversations.
That's great. I thank you for all your hard work and your staff's hard work and everything. Thank you for joining our show today. I hope you learned a little bit of where we're going in the future and how exciting 2011 is for us. We'll just give a shout out to Mark Ray, my producer and director today, and all the students here at ATC, and Ms. Menzinger, who produces the show. Thank you.